What's going on, everybody? Here we are. We are back with week 10 of our NFL picks. So far in the season, we are 92 and 42. Last week, we went 8 and 6. Not great, not terrible. We want to do a whole lot better in this one. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the NFL Crystal Ball. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and comment down below what your record is so far on this season. This week, we are rocking the J Love jersey. Got to support the guy. Packers have a big matchup against the Eagles on Monday Night Football in this one. Let's go ahead and jump into the picks. Starting off tonight, Thursday Night Football, with Raiders going to Denver to play the Broncos. And start with the Raiders. They're 2 and 6. They are in sell mode. They just traded away Jacoby Myers to the Jaguars, which we'll get into just a little bit later. But obviously, this team is not here to win this season. I think they thought bringing in Geno Smith, they would maybe have a chance at competing this year, maybe having a shot at winning a few more games, potentially getting a playoff spot, but that is obviously not the case. 2 and 6 so far on the season. We said it before the season even started, have said it pretty much every week about the Raiders. Their offensive struggles all stem from their offensive line. They did have a little bit of a better week last week, but that was really on the back of Brock Bowers, who is a really great talent. They've got Brock Bowers and Genty, and I think they've got a couple good things going for them there, but they need a much better offensive line, and Geno Smith has got to go. His career in Las Vegas is not going to be very long, and I don't expect it to carry over to next season. I think it's going to be really difficult for this Raiders offensive line this week going up against a Broncos pass rush that's been really strong all season, and a defensive line that's been really coming on against the run the last few weeks. Geno Smith really does not do good under pressure, and I think the Broncos are going to send a lot of it at the Raiders. The Broncos look quite good. They're winning games. I think that they are a really good football team, but I've been saying it all season. The Bo Nix inconsistency is still holding them back from their potential. These guys have a contending roster, but I don't think Bo Nix is ready to be in that conversation. So until he really gets more consistent, especially in the first quarter, if you look at his splits, the first quarter has been really rough for him, but until Bo Nix is more consistent, it is difficult to trust the Broncos against good football teams. And unfortunately for the Raiders, they are not playing a good football team here Thursday night. The Broncos are going to get the win. They just match up really well in this game, going up against a really bad offensive line with their really strong front seven. So I think Broncos get the win. They handle business at home on Thursday night. Next up, we got the Falcons going on the road to play the Colts, but this one's going to be in Germany, so really a neutral site game. Colts are kind of just the ones missing out on a home game there. Last week for the Falcons, they kept it close against the Patriots. They looked like a pretty good team. And for this Falcons offense, it is just run purely through Bijan Robinson and Drake London. They really have not had a whole lot going for them with their other weapons on offense. I'd love to see Kyle Pitts more involved. I'd especially love to see Darnell Mooney more involved. He looked pretty good at small flashes last season, and I do think he's got some talent and could be a better wide receiver if he's utilized more. So, I mean, this Falcons offense is very predictable, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can stop it. For the Colts, coming off the tough loss against the Steelers last week, that was a unique game for the Colts. They had 6 turnovers and only lost by 7 points. So I'm not really going to count that towards how I predict them to play in the future, as long as they don't turn the ball over 6 times again in this one, or 5 times. You get the idea. For the Colts, big trade this week. They just acquired Sauce Gardner from the Jets for 2 first-round picks, which is a hefty price to pay for him. But they obviously believe in him. They believe they can contend. And Indiana Jones is the answer for the Colts here. And they're obviously looking at a 2-3 year window. They're going to have to pay Daniel Jones this offseason. I'm kind of curious to what that contract looks like. But in this matchup, I expect if Sauce Gardner clears concussion protocol, he's going to be lined up across from Drake London the entire game. That's going to make things really, really difficult for the Falcons. And I'm not so sure they're going to be able to use those other weapons that they haven't been able to use really all season. Colts have been pretty good against the run, so I don't expect the Falcons to be able to just run the ball straight down the Colts' throat. And honestly, the Colts are just a better football team. They've been more consistent. Outside of those 6 turnovers last week, they've taken really good care of the football. And teams that win the line of scrimmage and take care of the football typically win games. The Colts are going to win this one in Germany. Next up, we got the Patriots going on the road to play the Buccaneers. And last week for the Patriots, they won a really close one against the Falcons. For the Patriots, that offensive line continues to look really, really good. It looked pretty good against the Falcons last week. They had a test going up against Myles Garrett a couple weeks back, and they did all right versus that Browns defensive line. This Patriots offensive line was the biggest struggle for them last season and is one of their biggest strengths so far this season. And it's going to have to come to play on Sunday against the Buccaneers, who blitz at a top 5 rate. So I think that's going to be really the key to watch, is if the Bucs are able to pressure Drake May. For the Patriots, it doesn't look like Ramondre Stevenson is going to be back this week. This is Thursday. Things could change later in the week, but honestly, I don't really think that plays a factor. Travion Henderson looked really good last week, and I do think he's actually the better running back. Pass protection might be another story, but I do think he's probably the more explosive running back. For the Buccaneers, they've definitely cooled down the last couple of weeks, and that's not surprising considering all the injuries they've had to their wide receiver core. Obviously, Mike Evans is out probably until playoffs, if the Bucs, assuming the Bucs make it. Chris Godwin has really been more off the field than on since returning to that injury. It doesn't look like he's going to play. Bucky Irving doesn't look like he's going to play. And Egbuka's been hurt the last couple of weeks. Even though he's been on the field, he just hasn't quite been himself. So Egbuka will be healthy in this one. Bucky Irving, Chris Godwin, they don't look like they're going to be playing. And I think that's going to be pretty difficult for the Bucs to keep that offensive consistency and that firepower that they've relied on really all season without those guys. Patriots are playing really well. They're the healthier team, and I worry about the Bucs' ability to be explosive. And you kind of have to have some explosive plays to win games. Patriots are underdogs. They're on the road, and the Patriots are going to get the upset on the road against the Bucs. Next up, we got the Browns at the Jets, and you can see it on the screen. Storyline there for the Jets is Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams are traded away. The Jets are in a downhill spiral. These guys have nothing going for them. I'm sad that Breece Hall is still trapped there. You knew Garrett Wilson wasn't going to get moved. They've labeled him as untouchable, but I did think there was a chance they'd move on Breece Hall. But unfortunately for him, he's stuck in New York. And the Jets really just don't have anything good going for them. Jumping over to Cleveland, I think that Cleveland's run game and their defense is their identity. And they're going to be going up against a Jets team that hasn't done good against the run all season, and now they just traded away their best run defender. So I just don't see the Jets being able to compete with the Browns in this one, especially with probably some locker room issues that are following the trade deadline for the Jets. I'm sure nobody in that locker room is happy. So we are going to be picking the Browns on the road in this one. I think Quinshaw Judkins is in for a big game on Sunday. Next up, we got the Ravens at the Vikings, and both of these teams are coming off much needed wins. Last week, the Ravens finally looked like the Ravens. They looked really good. That offense was humming, and this week, I expect Derrick Henry to get back on track. He really hasn't had a whole lot of effectiveness so far this season. I think a lot of that has had to do with teams loading the box against him, with Lamar Jackson not being on the field, just not as much of a passing threat when Huntley was on the field. So I think this is a game where Derrick Henry could really pop off. The Vikings' run defense hasn't been that strong all season. They did do good against the Lions last week, but the Lions really didn't even have that many rush attempts. That was kind of just a weird game in which the Vikings got up ahead early, and the Lions kind of had to scrap their typical game plan and play different football. So I do think this is a game where Derrick Henry, that Ravens offense, can definitely get going. Last week on offense for the Vikings, J.J. McCarthy obviously was back, and he really did not look that good. They got the win. That's the important thing, but ultimately, I don't think he's the answer. Carson Wentz potentially is even the better option as of today. I'm not saying that's the long-term solution, but I do think Carson Wentz in the games he's been on the field versus McCarthy has probably been the better quarterback. And the most difficult thing, I think, for the Vikings on offense is their offensive line's been very, very banged up all season. It's going to be banged up going into this game as well. But the advantage for them in this one is that the Ravens' defensive line has really struggled to get pressure and has really struggled against the run. So kind of a little bit of a helpful thing there for the Vikings. But ultimately, Lamar Jackson is the X factor in this game. He He is so much better than J.J. McCarthy, and better quarterback play often wins games, especially when the rest of the team is very comparable. Now, these are very different football teams, but I think talent-wise, these are comparable football teams, but Lamar Jackson's far better than J.J. We're picking the Ravens to get the road win against the Vikings. Next up, we got the Jaguars at the Texans, and last week for the Texans, we had them picked. They were a public underdog and a Vegas favorite, which a rule of mine is take the Vegas favorite when the public is fading them. Vegas knows more than any of us. I don't care how much analysis you do. They're smarter, they do better, and they know more. So I oftentimes feel like that's a time to steal a game on the field. And last week, the Texans were favored against the Broncos, and they would have won that game had CJ Stroud not gone down with a concussion. So I'm still happy we abided by our rule. We didn't go crazy. I was a little worried about the matchup, but honestly, they looked better than the Broncos until Stroud went out. Anyways, in this game, CJ Stroud likely not to play with the concussion, and the offense for the Texans really, really struggled with Davis Mills on the field last week. They were going up against an elite Broncos defense, but they just did not look all that great. For the defense, on the defensive side of the ball for the Texans, their defense continues to look elite. They really shut down the Broncos most of last week. And their defense is going to need to play well if they want to win this one. For the Jaguars, on offense, BTJ and Travis Hunter are both going to be out in this one. Travis Hunter's on IR, but you can see him on the screen. Jacoby Myers is now a Jaguar. He's been wanting to get out of Vegas for over a year now, and he finally got his wish. He's going to be playing with Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. Liam Cohen's got a new weapon, and I do think that Jacoby Myers is actually a really talented player, so I'm excited to see what he has in store in Jacksonville. Very likely could be wide receiver 1 this week. Washington is going to be the only other guy. Brenton Strange is also out. So their top 3 targets are all out in this one. So I think it's a good time for them to pick up Jacoby Myers. What determines this game is how well the Jaguars run the football. I don't think that they're going to have a ton of success throwing the ball with those weapons being hurt and going up against a Texans secondary and pass rush that's been really, really good this season. And I also don't think the Texans are going to have a ton of offensive success. The Jaguars' defense has been bend but don't break, so I do think that there is an opportunity for the Texans to move down the field, get in field goal position, get to 15 to 18 points somehow and still win this game. And we are going to pick the Texans to get the upset on the backs of their defense at home here in this one. I'm just not confident in that Jaguars offense without those weapons. And I do think that the Jaguars defense is not quite as good as we all maybe thought early on in the season. Texans get the home win, but the upset with Davis Mills as quarterback. Next up, we got the Giants going on the road to play the Chicago Bears. And Bears won a shootout against the Bengals last week. And honestly, it was pretty lucky that Colston Loveland touchdown at the end was just handed to the Bears. So their defense looked really bad, but they were going up against a Bengals team that's pretty explosive offensively. So fun game to watch last week for the Bears. Important thing for them is that they got the win. And for the Giants, they're coming off a loss against the 49ers in just a game where they were honestly outplayed. I think it's going to be really difficult for the Giants to win a bunch of football games with no Cam Scadabo, obviously no Malik Neighbors. Jackson Dart's playing really good football, and he is looking like a really good quarterback. I'm pretty excited for what he's got going there in New York. He's bringing some swagger. I think that's a good recipe for them. And he's playing really well with not that many weapons around him. I feel like Wan'Dale Robinson's really the only talented guy that he's throwing the ball to. You could argue Theo Johnson as well, but I don't think he's anything special. In this one, I just think that the Bears are the hotter football team. I think they're the better football team. I could see this one being another higher scoring game because the Bears just don't have much on defense. Jackson Dart can make some special plays, even all by himself. But we're going to pick the Bears to stay hot and get the win at home. Next up, we got the Saints at the Panthers. And I don't want to get into it too hard. You guys probably all saw it. The Panthers beat the Packers last week in Lambeau in a really disappointing game to watch as a Packers fan. But the Panthers looked pretty good. Their identity obviously is in running the ball and trying to play decent defense. And that worked out for them last week. Panthers are 5-4. These guys are rolling. They have a recipe that's worked for them. I do think quarterback play is what's going to hold them back from excelling at all this season. But in this game, they're going to be going up against the Saints, who a couple weeks ago benched Spencer Rattler and started Tyler Shuck, and Shuck has been awful for him. I said it before he even got on the field that Rattler has been playing good enough. They need to keep him out there, and until Rattler proves otherwise, he needs to be the starting quarterback. And Tyler Shuck's been really, really bad. And they just traded away Rashid Shaheed to the Seahawks. He was on an expiring contract, so I recognize the move. I think it's a good trade for the Saints. They're not competing this year. They're not going to get anything from him, so you might as well take what you can get. In this game, we're picking the Panthers. I cannot pick the Saints with Tyler Shuck on the football field, and the Panthers have been playing all right the last few weeks, so we're going to be riding with Carolina in this one. Next up, we got the Bills at the Dolphins. And for the Bills, they're coming off that huge win against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I'm sure that one felt good for them. The Chiefs have consistently had the Bills number, so it was a huge win for the Bills to get last week. They're a very solid football team, and they're obviously a clear Super Bowl contender. James Cook's having a monster season, and that defense looked pretty good last week, especially the return of Matt Milano, I think, helps out this defense. For the Dolphins, they are just a bad football team. They have their ups and downs, but honestly, these guys are just a bad football team. Tua is absolutely garbage. Mike McDaniel's play calling has been weird, and he got away with it for a couple of years, but I think the league has figured him out and figured out how to scheme against him. I'm really surprised the Dolphins did not fire sale their team at the deadline. I know they got a lot of calls about Achane, although he's still pretty young and a core of their team, so I'm not surprised they didn't move him. But I'm really surprised they didn't fire sale. I think the only move they made was selling Jalen Phillips to the Eagles. And I'm surprised that the GM is the only guy who got fired. I was expecting that McDaniels was going to lose his job, and he still could, but didn't happen here yet. In this game, the Dolphins the Dolphins are not getting the win. The Bills get the win in this one. When these two teams played last, it was actually a little bit closer than I think most people anticipated, but this one will not be the same. Bills blow out the Dolphins in this one. Next up, we got the Cardinals at the Seahawks. And for the Cardinals, they just put Kyler Murray on IR with that foot injury. So Brissett will be starting at least for the next 4 weeks. And yes, Kyler Murray is injured, but I think this could be more of like a soft benching than anything. I don't think that the Cardinals feel all that confident with Kyler Murray right now. I think they feel more confident with Brissett. And the team has looked more confident and better with Brissett out there. They've just been a much better football team offensively with that. And going back to last Monday, the Cardinals had a big win against the Cowboys in which the Cardinals offense looked pretty good, but their defense also looked really good, holding the Cowboys to only 10 points. And then the Cardinals obviously gave up that punt block touchdown, so that was how the Cowboys got to 17. But their defense held the Cowboys, who have a great offense, to only 10 points. And that was coming off a close game against the Packers the week before. So I do think Jacoby Brissett and the Cardinals have a little something going for them. They're hard to judge, but they're playing sneakily well. I vowed when the Cardinals knocked me out of the elimination, when they had that meltdown to the Titans, to not pick them, and I'm not picking them in this one. We're picking the Seahawks. JSN's having a monster season. Sam Darnold's having a monster season. This defense looks really, really good. And they just traded for Rashid Shaheed, who's familiar with that Kubiak offense. So I do think that that's going to be another advantage for them down the stretch. But Seahawks are a far better football team, and they're going to get the win in this one. Next up, we got the Rams at the 49ers. And the 49ers won this Thursday night football matchup earlier in the season. And that was a game in which Mac Jones looked like Tom Brady. We said that a couple times, and I'm just going to say it right here, right now. The 49ers are not going to win this matchup. They're not going to sweep the Rams. The Rams had two really bad football fumbles in that game, and I don't think that's going to happen again in this one. Rams have done really good taking care of the football so far this season, and I think the Rams are just the better football team. Last time these two teams played, what worked for the Niners was quick passes from Mac Jones, avoiding throwing the ball downfield and avoiding holding onto it for too long so this Rams pass rush can't get to them. And I just think the Rams are going to be able to defend against that better and game plan against that better in this one. Rams are a really, really hot team. They look like one of the best teams in the NFL, and they're going to beat the 49ers on the road. Next up, we got the Lions at the Commanders. And for the Lions, they're coming off that tough loss against the Vikings in a game that they just did not look like themselves. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but it was just a weird game that got away from them early, and they just didn't look that great. Their offensive line, in particular, really struggled, which has kind of been their identity over the last couple of years. It's been a very much beat you up front type of team, and last week they did not look like that team. In this one, it looks like Penei Sewell will not be playing. I think that's a pretty big deal for this Lions team. He's one of the best players on that entire team, offense or defense. Obviously, the best player on that offensive line. And for an offensive line that has struggled the last couple of weeks, that's going to play a factor. For the Commanders, we all probably saw that nasty injury to Jaden Daniels. Fortunately, it's not his throwing arm, so he will be back. It shouldn't affect his ability to perform in the future, but we're not going to have him for the foreseeable future. In the meantime, Mariota's back on the field. He's done pretty good so far this season. And for the Commanders, they're going to continue to run the ball, or at least attempt to. That's where their success on offense has come from, is games where they ran the ball well. And I just don't think it's going to be all that easy this week, going up against a Lions defense that's got Jack Campbell in the middle, who's a rock star run defender. The offensive line injuries for the Lions definitely worry me a bit in this one, but they are going up against a Commanders team that struggled to pressure the quarterback. I don't think Lions cover 8.5 points in this one, but I do think they get the win. We're taking the Lions to get the road win here. Next up, we got Sunday Night Football. We got the Steelers at the Chargers, and both of these teams are coming off big wins. The Steelers upset the Colts last week, brought the Colts back down to earth. We talked about that one earlier as well. 6 turnovers forced from the Steelers defense. And the Chargers won a close one against the Titans. I don't think that's all that great for them. You know, it was a 7-point game, but it was close coming down the stretch. The Titans definitely had a chance in that one. And the thing for the Chargers that's really, really bad is Joe Alt is going down for the season. Oh, you can see computer batteries running low. We're going to keep rocking. We're going to finish this video out real quick. So anyways, I do think that Joe Alt going down is going to be a really big factor. This Chargers offensive line has struggled without Slater, and when Alt wasn't on the field, they really struggled to run the ball and pass protect. And they're going up against a Steelers defense that's looked really, really good the last couple of weeks, and front seven that's really strong. Rodgers has done a great job at spreading the ball around offensively. Jalen Warren's looked really good. And I just think in this game that the offensive line injuries for the Chargers are going to be really, really difficult. It's going to be difficult for them to handle the pass rush coming from the Steelers. So the Steelers are going to get the upset on the road and win this one. Last up, Monday Night Football. We got the Eagles at the Packers. We're going to try to keep this just a little brief so we can make sure the computer doesn't die before the video's over. But anyways, going back to my rule, when a team is a public underdog but a Vegas favorite, I take that team, especially when it's my Green Bay Packers. So we are picking the Packers in this one. The Eagles are coming off the bye. They just made a few trades to pick up some guys on defense. Jalen Phillips, Jair Alexander, Michael Carter II. And the Eagles are getting healthier with A.J. Brown and Saquon, and they have looked better the last couple of weeks. Packers haven't looked great the last couple of weeks. That Cardinals close game, then the loss to the Panthers last week. But I do think the Packers have an advantage here in this one with a pass rush that's been really good all season, and Jalen Hurts, who hasn't been great under pressure. So I think the team can pressure Hurts, maybe cause him to make a couple of mistakes, slow down Saquon just enough, and the offense gets back on track in this one. We're picking the Packers at home on Monday Night Football. Public underdog, Vegas favorite. You take the Vegas favorite every single time. Hope you guys enjoyed. Good luck. Don't fade the pick.